suspicion was, of course, over the death of his mother. He suspected that her corpse might be found in that western forest, but of course, upon further thought, he thought himself just a touch mad for having thought it. Nonetheless, that is where Refo was now headed, where he now sought his path, so to speak. He took with him his good friend Jorgen, of course, and after they each had decided to make this journey to the western forest, they had realized, of course, how stupid it sounded. What were they in search for, really? It was obvious, of course, that Jorgen wanted to find something there as well, though perhaps out of a sort of particular curiosity rather than concern for his friend. Though that's not to say that he did not have concern for Refo, but rather that he was a curious man. Someone who wanted to understand and discover a quality that Refo admired, as often Refo found himself with the desire to sit quietly and still away from others, though he did understand people well. Perhaps even because of it. Nonetheless, despite this curiosity, of course, perhaps Refo could have done with a little dissuasion. It was a stupid idea that Grandin Obscurus had found the corpse of his dead mother in that of the western forest, which was over a day's ride away, and that Refo might find something of note there, that he might understand what had caused her death. It was outlandish, really, but given the present circumstance and Grandin's motivations, his desire to outcompete Refo wanted to give it a look. And besides the way that he had said it, it was the way it had been said, or so Refo told himself. So, as he thought to himself, as the carriage driver casually drove forward and towards that encumbrance of a forest, the words spoken, he thought that had been enough for him to take the look. And so here they were on the outskirts of the city, making their way towards the western forest, a gray sky nearly black looming overhead, the look of rain painstakingly present, and surely enough it did begin to pour. Some time passed before either of the two spoke, and their carriage driver, who was bearing the cold and rain, layered, and without a chill would say nothing save the occasional encouraging word to the two horses that pulled. Refo and Jorgen, however, did begin to speak, quietly at first, and then again as their fear subsided some, though their anticipation did not wane. "Jorgen," Refo had said, and then prompted the conversation. "Let's talk about this place, this dark forest." Jorgen only smiled as a father might smile as a child who is afraid of the dark. And of course he said, "Do you fear it, my friend?" Refo shook his head slowly. "No," he started to say, but then added, "Not entirely, at least." Jorgen could only smile at him as he sat, fingers twined, his smile ever widening. It was obvious to Refo that he was about to tell him something. "What is it?" Refo asked. For what is the grinning?" Jorgen shrugged and cocked his head one way, then back. "I don't suppose," he's trailed off yet, grinning. You don't suppose what?" Refo shrugged slightly. "What is it?" Jorgen did not move, and then more seriously, though with the slightest of amused grins, he spoke once more. "You haven't heard of it?" It had been a statement and not a question. Refo hadn't the slightest idea of what it was he was speaking of. "No," Refo said, shaking his head. "Tell me." Jorgen leaned back with a shrug, undoing his hands and patting his legs before returning them, yet remaining leaned further back. As the rain poured outside, and whilst nothing was visible, he laughed a moment quietly and then shook his head and said, "The terror bird." "The what?" Refo asked, leaned forward. "I can't believe you've not heard of it, actually," he sighed, closing his eyes. "I thought that was something you'd know about." Refo scoffed. "You're speaking nonsense." "Am I?" Jorgen opened an eye to look at him. Refo shook his head and thought to ignore his good friend, but did not. "What is it supposed to be?" Refo asked, a look of amusement on his face as he entertained the thought. Jorgen shook his head jovially. "It would only frighten you, Refo." "Would it now?" Refo said, now somewhat amused. "I doubt it." "It would," Jorgen nodded. "I know you. You have an active imagination." Right now you're the one with the active imagination," Refo laughed. "A terror bird. What would that even look like?" "Large," Jorgen nodded, eyes closed. "Large and terrifying." "Descriptive," Refo sighed, his worries escaping him for the moment. Jorgen soon after fell asleep, and Refo, who could not sleep in a carriage, was left to his thoughts and his imaginations, of which he had many, unfortunately, with nothing to do but meander through his thoughts, and with the most prevalent topic at hand, that of the terror bird. Refo could not help but to ponder it. What would it look like? What did it do? Where was its nest, he supposed, if it were real, which of course it was not. He caught himself thinking and pondering these thoughts, and he thought pensively to himself that he was such the fool for having them. Of course there was no terror bird, of course there was no... But what had Grand and Obscurus meant exactly when he'd said that he'd found nothing as important as the trees and the fashion in which he'd said it? Had he meant anything by it? Had he meant... Refo laughed at himself. No, he thought, of course. He had not meant it. Not as the terror bird. He had found something, Refo knew, and whatever that might be, he thought. The terror bird, his mother, the trees, whichever or something else, he did not care. He would discover it somehow. After all, they were headed to his camp. Unannounced, but nonetheless welcome, he was sure, Refo was. Nonetheless, as Refo lay awake and wide-eyed, pondering, thinking, wondering, a certain fear gripped at his heart, clutching at it for but moments before it subsided. What he drove into within the carriage walls, pulled by heavy horses and a quiet yet kind man alongside his good yet somewhat darkly friend, he was uncertain. And it did frighten him. The terror bird, of course, must be false, he thought. But Grand and Obscurus, he was very real. And very large. Refo gulped a second before collecting himself. He took a breath and shrugged. We'll see.